Welcome, my friends, brothers, and sisters, and each and every one of you in the listening audience. Thank you for joining in once again to. I thought I had turned that off. Kill it. Um, Okay. Is that Anthony Hall? It came through when you got on airplane. Good evening, my friends, brothers, and sisters, and all of you in the listening audience, and welcome once again to the Leo and Larry Show, the show that tells you the things that you need to know and the places where you need to go. And this week, we have an exciting guest, and I say exciting, he's a young man. I get excited every time. We have young people who are experienced and knowledgeable and doing great work because that way we know that the journey to achieve justice and a better world will continue, after elders like myself have departed the earthly plane and moved on to the next part of our journey. And so we have today uh, Montravias King, who is the director for the South Carolina chapter of the Sierra Club. And we're so excited to have him. And Montravias, hello, and thank you for coming on to the Leo and Larry show.
Hello, Reverend Woodbury. It's so great. It's an honor to be able to join the show with you this morning. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing for communities across the state of South Carolina. Honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing in South Carolina now and other things that you have been involved in. So why don't you share about your background? You actually came out of North Carolina to lead the South Carolina chapter of the Sierra Club. So, young man, I hope you don't mind me saying it. 33 years old, and you have
33.
accomplished so much at such an early age. You kind of remind me of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I often say to young people today, a lot of our leaders, Dr. King, Malcolm X, so many folks accomplished so much, by the time they were your age. So tell us some of the things that you've done. Tell us about your background, schooling, etc.
Thank you, Reverend Woodbury. Again, it's an honor to join you today. And hello to the entire listening audience. If you're listening right now, I encourage you to call or text or tweet out to some of your friends and family members and tell them to join the Leo and Larry show this morning, because we're going to talk about a wide range of topics. And I'm excited to be able to, to share out and also to have this dialogue with Reverend Woodbury. As Reverend Woodbury stated, I am from North Carolina, proud country boy from rural eastern North Carolina. I grew up in a single parent household. My mother was on government assistance, but I knew from an early age that my mother wanted me to be something in life. And she told me that. She was like, hey, you got to read. And she told me, that, even when she was pregnant with me, she read to me all the time. And even when I started school, she instilled in me the importance of an education, that was the only way out, that having an education. So that was instilled in me, and it was ingrained in me in an early age by my mother, single parent, and I grew up, having a heart for organizing. I knew at an early age that I wanted to do something that, to help my people, to help communities that are struggling, in poverty, and help communities that are struggling with environmental injustices, across the state. So I started with the NAACP around the same time that now Bishop William Barber III, who used to be the president of the North Carolina state branch of the NAACP, he started the Moral Mondays, in which each February, the NAACP, along with its coalition partners from across the state, would rally in Raleigh and the state capitol to march and to protest against the unjust laws that were being passed by the Republican Party at that time. That's how I got started in organizing.
And how old were you then?
At that time, I was around that time I was 15 years old when I started organizing. Yeah, I was and Reverend Woodbury, speaking of organizing, when I talk to some young people today, and I say that word, it's not, it doesn't seem like it's a popular route to go, and I have to remind them that when we look at our first Black president, Barack Obama, guess how he started? In organizing. He started organizing communities on the south side of Chicago. That's how he got his start. So an organizer can grow up and become the president of the United States of America. There's so many different.
Yeah. I started organizing. I handed out my first flyer and knocked on doors. I was 14. Yeah, so like you start young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right. That's right. So I say that often because I'm like, it's not how you start, but how you start does have a direct impact on where you go. So I'm thankful that I've had those experiences, because like I tell people all the time, the people that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And how I was trained was that you don't go into communities immediately telling them this is what you got to do, this is what you need. You go into the community and you listen, you understand the issues first, and then you provide ways for them to be able to use your capacity to help them establish their goals. So I love when I've been researching New Alpha CDC and all the the impactful things that you guys have done throughout the years. And I love your concept. Your concept is community driven. Everything you do is community driven. It brings resources in the community, but it's driven by the community. When you do that, I feel like that is the way to go, and be intentional about ensuring that that no one is able to come in and usurp efforts that need to be sustained. Because a lot of times people come into communities and they're there for a month or two or maybe a year, and then they're gone. But with your approach and your investments in the community, it's sustainable. So
yes. But tell us some more about 15. You started with Bishop Barber, and what did you do with them, and where did you move on to from there? Because you went to college, I know that.
That's right. I decided to attend college in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. For those of you who are listening, maybe some of you are alums or know or have heard of Elizabeth City State University. But for those of you that have not, ECSU is an historically Black university in northeastern North Carolina. Alex Haley, the author of Roots, also attended ECSU. And my godparents attended ECSU, and they encouraged me to give it a shot. They encouraged me to apply. They said, "Hey, look, we believe that this is a small college that's going to be able to give you the opportunity to get the skills that you need to take you to the next level in your career, and also to give you room to shine." Because originally, Reverend Woodbury, I wanted to go to Morehouse. I was like, I'm going to Morehouse. I applied to Morehouse. I got accepted because I wanted to follow the same, to be honest with you, I wanted to follow the same path of Dr. Martin Luther King. I said, Dr. King went to Morehouse, I'm going to Morehouse. Dr. King is an alpha, I'm going to be an alpha. My mom didn't want me to go to Morehouse, and neither did my godparents. I said, you know what, let's give it a chance. So I applied, gave it a chance, full ride scholarship, honors program, and they were right. It was the right fit for me. I was able to get a quality education, from a state supported school, while at the same time, yes, I was able to shine because it was a small school. So I immediately stood out. I pledged Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I began to get involved in organizing in different capacities. I even got involved at this, it's crazy now looking back at it. We had a green club. We started talking about sustainability, and we brought about the first recycling bins of sorts. We got recycling containers in the dorms at the universities. And it's wild now looking back at that today, when you hear people talking about, now you got sustainability directors and all types of programs centered around sustainable concepts. But we started that at the university because it didn't exist prior. And but what really changed my life there and my trajectory was when I became the president of the ECSU college chapter of the NAACP. And I immediately, began that. That's when my leadership was really cemented. I had a direct line to the chancellor. I was in the SGA as well, but the NAACP was my, that was my baby. That's where I activated students, got students engaged on voting and elections and all that good stuff. And, in 2012, when Ben Jealous, the youngest president of the NAACP, when he was president, we were inspired by his leadership, and he made an appeal, and he said, "Hey, look, we need as many students as possible to register to vote. We need to influence this election. We need to sound the alarm and make our voices heard." So we registered more new voters than any other college chapter in the state of North Carolina. And at that time, that was a really, really big deal because of voting rights were being challenged. I know you probably remember that, Reverend Woodbury, around 2012, 2013. We started seeing this huge surge of voter ID laws and all types of voter oppression bills across the South. We wanted to make our voices heard and say, hey, look, we will not be deterred to vote. We will, access the ballot box, and use our power. And when all of that occurred, I said to myself, wow, we were able to, to really, engage students, in our democratic election, in our process. And I was like, if I can do that, if we can do this together, then I probably can run for office. And that next year, that's exactly what I did. I decided that I wanted to run to become the youngest city councilman in the state of North Carolina. And I did that, but it was not without challenge, of course. I ran for city council at the age of 21 years old, and my candidacy was challenged by the chair of the local Republican Party, which was Pasco County, GOP. He challenged my candidacy, Reverend Woodbury, stating that I could not use my own campus address for voting purposes. Wow. And when I looked at it, my team looked at it, we said, wait a minute, if I can't use my campus address to run for office, well, that means that I shouldn't be able to vote. But I've used this address since I became a student at ECSU. I voted in every single election since I became a student, all the municipal elections, as well. And so somehow the local newspaper, the Daily Advance, caught wind of that story, and they interviewed me. And not even probably 24 hours later, that story reached the AP. And from the AP, the next thing I knew, the Associated Press, that's right. And then the next thing I knew, I received a call from MSNBC, from Rachel Maddow, and they wanted me to be on her show. And it became national news.
At 21.
At 21 years old, and when I thought about it, I said, it's not even about me, because if they are allowed to do this, to do what they're trying to do, this can have implications on students voting across the country, black or white. What made it even worse was, of course, we're already in a small, historically black college and university in the South. Where at the time, the governor, Pat McCrory, was already introducing a whole slate of oppressive anti-voting bills at that time. So the timing of it was just crazy, out of this world. So Rachel Maddow, knowing who she is, she definitely wanted to cover it, and she did cover it.
That
So,
was
you know,
wonderful. So what? So at what point? So you went from the NAACP, the Poor People's Campaign. Is that when you moved on to PSC Partnership for Southern Equity?
well, before I went to PSC, I served as stint on council for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes people ask me what happened. I get that question a lot because I didn't serve my full term, and the reason why I didn't serve my full term is because what people don't realize is that, as in the case with municipal councils across the country, when you serve in an elected in an elected capacity, on this level, on a local level, you're not
Mm-hmm.
paid a salary. You
No.
may receive a stipend, you may receive, money for gas or whatever, but you're not paid a livable wage you know, as you would for, say, if you were in Chicago. The Chicago City Council, they receive a full salary, they receive a full staff. New York, same thing. But in a small town such as Elizabeth City, 18,000 people, I didn't receive a salary. I only received $500 a month. So because of all the attention that I received, Reverend Woodbury, I was basically blacklisted. I was
Mm-hmm.
blacklisted and was unable to find a job. And
Right.
this is how I realized I was blacklisted when I humbled myself and I said, you know what? I have a college degree. I graduated. I'm a political science major. I know I can do anything, but I'm going to humble myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I applied to fast food restaurants and even the local poultry plant, and they
Mm-hmm.
still would not hire me. And that's when I said, I'm blacklisted. I'm not going to be able to find a job. So I had to, long story short, I had to go back home and work. I still kept my council seat, but the media hounded me so hard about my residency. They said, "Oh man, he's not in Elizabeth City. He's 200 miles away at his parents' home." So I ended up resigning my seat. But a lot of lessons learned from that, and I really, at this stage in my life, 33 years old, looking back at that experience, I want to do all I can to help empower other young people who want to serve in office. To help them navigate the complexities, because when you're, when you don't come from wealth, and when you don't have, people in place to help you navigate those challenges and difficulties, it's hard, to be able to, to make decisions at that moment. But looking back at it, I know I made the best decision for me. So I got back home and I started in the school system. I became a teacher assistant at first, and while I was a teacher assistant, I went back to school and received my teacher licensure, and I
Mm-hmm.
became licensed to teach middle grades 6 through 9. And then I added on another licensure to teach high school. And I taught, and I gave the public school system 5 years. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what I did for 5 years. Got invested in the state school system and retirement fund, and taught middle grade social studies, and I also taught high school social studies, high school civics, and advanced placement courses. I did that for 5 years. And my last year teaching was in 2017. And during that time, of course, Trump was president. And I was able to navigate that, because that was also a very challenging situation at times. Because I don't know if you guys remember, but a lot of teachers got in trouble when Trump was president because they spoke their mind. And I understand, right? I see both sides in that. But I was very careful. I said, I don't want to say anything because I know that I have students,
Mm-hmm.
that have parents that have different opinions in regards to,
Right.
politics. So I was very careful not to give my own personal opinion in the classroom. Because of that, a lot of parents thank me. I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
parents that were Republicans and parents that were Democrats. They all thanked me after that. And they began to ask me, they say, "Hey, why don't you get back into politics?" Or, it just seems like you should be doing something greater. And I say, no, I said, I'm where I'm supposed to be at right now. This is where I'm supposed
Right.
to be at. I'm happy teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought about it. it stuck in my mind. And I said, wow, you know what? I do want to get back in policy. I want to, be able to influence power again. I know I can do a lot in the classroom, and I have done a lot by shaping young minds, but I want to be in the center of it. So I did. Yeah. So that's when I decided that I wanted to get back in public policy, to be able to shape some of the decisions and some of the laws that were being passed in the state of North Carolina. So I became a legislative assistant in the North Carolina General Assembly. I worked for two powerful Black women, State Representative Sidney Batch, who's now state senator, and State Senator Natalie Murdoch. And during that time, Reverend Woodbury, a lot of the policies that these women prioritized were around clean energy, were around sustainability, and were around conservation issues and environmental justice issues. So that's what really got me thinking, about my future and shaping conservation and environmental justice issues. And opportunity came up for me to work in a nonprofit in North Carolina that was doing just that. So before I went to PSC, I was actually with the North Carolina League of Conservation Voters. And they focused at that time, their big focus was the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. So that's how I got my story.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the problems in small cities, towns, there's challenges in larger ones as well. But you have these cliques, you have these little circles, and if you're not a part of it, if you've offended someone in their imagination in some way, you're just on the wrong side of the political fence, they will turn down things. They will stop opportunities from occurring just because of who's presenting it. And it's so sad because so many people in communities have to do without because of the political chicanery that goes on in these cities and in these small cities and towns. That is why your next step, I just want the audience to understand how important policy is. Being able to pass laws and have things budgeted on the federal and the state level that then can trickle down to communities. Because a lot of times, like I said, because of cliques and political chicanery and competition and conflicts, a lot of things don't happen on the local level. But when policy, laws, opportunities, funding comes down from other levels, from the federal and the state, it oftentimes, because they need the money, they will grab they will grab onto that to make things better. But and what you were saying earlier, thought came to my mind. Opportunities, innovation, programs that are supported on the federal and state level often come from the bottom up. Rather than the top down. And so that's why it's so important for young people who are listening to not be disenchanted, but to realize that a lot of programs, the Affordable Care Act, things like that, started on a small scale before they became national or international. But continue, and because I want you to get the PSC, and then we want to talk about your current position here in South Carolina.
Okay, absolutely. But you're definitely right. I was taught in an early age that all politics is local, and a lot of times people become so intrigued and infatuated with what is happening at the national level that they neglect to prioritize things that are happening at the local level. And now, and this because you've been able to leverage this opportunity, And I'm really excited too to get to Justice 40 and all that good stuff too.
Mhm.
You've been able to leverage the historic investments in climate and clean energy and Justice 40, to be able to directly benefit the communities. We need more of that. More of that should be happening across the country. But people are so wrapped up in what's going on at the national level, they don't even realize that there's so many opportunities for you to be able to shape and influence and work together with people in community on projects that you guys need, infrastructure projects, clean water projects, resilience projects. Those things are needed right now in this moment. So I think, for me, being a small town boy from rural Eastern North Carolina, knowing the challenges, seeing my grandfather lose his job to NAFTA, and seeing how economically distressed Eastern North Carolina is. And now that I'm in South Carolina, I'm seeing some of those same similarities.
Same thing.
Same thing. Same
Mhm.
thing, just our neighbor to the immediate south. But yeah, Reverend Woodbury, I was blessed. I'm blessed to have been able to, my faith has carried me forward. I'll say that. One thing that I left out that I need to stop leaving out is that, I am a man of faith, and when I was in high school, I accepted a call on my life to preach. I became a young minister at the age of 15. So, I preached for a long time. I even activated the campus ministries as well. I've done so much that I really don't talk about as often. But my faith has really kept me, kept me pushing. Even after the city council thing, I was embarrassed by it first because I was like, man, I wanted to be able to finish my term. I done met so many people. I met so many people, and I know that so many people were looking up to me at that time. But I said I had to do what's best for me. So I moved on and persevered, and my faith really, really, really has kept me going throughout the years. Each time I've
Amen.
encountered, struggles, but from the League of Conservation Voters, an opportunity came up with the Partnership for Southern Equity because at that time, I think a year or so before that, President Biden um, sent out an executive order called the Justice 40, initiative, in which 40% of all new investments in climate and clean energy must be directed, to the disadvantaged communities. And with that came the opportunity for organizations across the nation. And you immediately, you immediately got on top of it, along with other CBOs and nonprofits across the South. Begin to say, hey, look, let's come together and let's leverage this. Let's leverage. Let's not just wait for the federal funding, but let's also engage the philanthropic community. And they did just that. The Partnership for Southern Equity received $4 million from the Jeff Bezos Earth Fund to launch the Justice 40 Accelerator, which became like a business incubator of some sorts to help organizations apply for that funding on the federal level, and to also boost their capacity to be able to apply for grant funding and navigate them through the red tape. So I became the inaugural director of the Justice 40 Accelerator at the Partnership for Southern Equity.
And the Partnership for Southern Equities, I remember when it was formed, and so many amazing things have been done, and so how many organizations went through the accelerator? Because we have community-based organizations across the country that I feel, wow, I don't even know how much money communities have received, but we're talking about millions of dollars. Black in Green in Chicago, we act like 5 million. I mean, across the country. And you were able to help steer a lot of organizations through the Justice 40 Accelerate. One of the things, though, that I'd like for you to talk about, and one of the shortcomings I see in a lot of communities, including here in South Carolina, is because this money goes directly to community organizations. A lot of it doesn't go through the state, the cities, or anything like that, though those partnerships are important. But talk about how In order to reach that level of funding, organizations have to work together. They have to partner and collaborate. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. And I think too, we've this is something that has never happened before on this magnitude. And Reverend Woodbury, you know how difficult and challenging it is to bring our people together on
Yeah.
sometimes even the smallest of issues, right? We know
Mm-hmm.
that, but we're optimistic. We're optimists. If not, you wouldn't continue to do the work that you're doing. You wouldn't continue to engage communities the way that you're doing. So you're right. We have to work together to be able to do that. And that type of coordination, that level of coordination is not happening across the board. And because of that, we're missing out. We're missing out on this moment to really be able to uh, to reimagine a just transition. We're really missing out on being able to really shape and to really steward these funds in this community, because organizations have not been collaborating, on the local level at a scale required to be able to see Justice 40 realized.
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing with the grant funding from the EPA and the DOE with the thriving communities and the technical assistance centers is we're seeing a huge void in terms of people on the ground, to be able to say, hey, look, this is what we need, and this is how we need it. Because right
Mm-hmm.
now the technical assistance centers, they're set up across the country. Each hub has been awarded $10 million,
Mm-hmm.
to provide technical assistance to community-based organizations, to environmental justice organizations that are doing work in the communities. But we're not seeing those investments right now. We're not seeing them on the ground right now, and that is a huge problem, and I'm concerned about it.
Oh
Um,
yeah, and see, as you said, this is a historical first. This amount of money has never been, targeted to be received by community-based organizations. I'm going to tell you frankly, I believe that there are a lot of the usual suspects, the power brokers, who don't want to see this type of funding going directly to communities, because they want it to fail so that the money will come through them. And so that is why, folks, community-based organizations, churches, etc., please, man, please, sir, let's make this a success so that it continues to happen. And we don't have to worry about people deciding that they're not going to accept Medicare expansion money for people who need health care coverage. We don't have to worry about people getting money for solar projects and deciding, oh, we'd rather give the money to businesses or to direct it here or there, and leaving communities out and leaving communities behind, especially when we need to strengthen our communities and make them more resilient so that they can survive things like the storms that we're having, the wildfires, etc., that scientists are telling us this is only the beginning. This is going to get worse. And
that's right.
so we need boots on the ground. The federal government, the states cannot do this by themselves. Last September,
That's right.
FEMA ran out of money and had to go in their 2024 budget to be able to help victims of the disasters and provide relief last year after September. So I applaud you for the work that you have done and the work that you're doing. And we're so glad to have you with all your knowledge and experience and expertise here in South Carolina right now. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It feels so good to be able to work with you. I think we spoke about this when we first met, and that is that a lot of times, our people don't connect the climate crisis, the everyday issues, the kitchen table issues that they're experiencing and that they're impacted. They don't see the correlation, of how the climate crises, because it is definitely a crisis. I think Reverend Woodbury at this point, no one even questions whether or not climate change exists, right? We know that some people on the far left have questioned that, is climate change a hoax? Well, I'm so glad that it was elevated in the vice presidential debate last night, and it should always be elevated because we are literally in a crisis, and we're seeing it firsthand with Helen. We're seeing it like you said earlier before we even got on the show that it's happening in places where people never before thought would be imaginable. The mountains never thought that they would be experiencing, climate in the way they are experiencing it right now. So we need more people, not just hands on deck, but we need more conveners like you. We need more organizations like New Alpha CDC that are in communities and willing to do the work that it takes to facilitate, projects, because here's the thing. I don't even, when we look at Justice 40 and we look at our communities, it's important that we identify some projects, because I don't care where you are across the South, especially in rural communities, there's a need somewhere. There's a need somewhere, in order to build resilience, in order to ensure that when these powerful storms come, because like you said, it's not a matter of if, it's when. They're going to come, and they're only going to intensify because the ocean temperatures are, continue to increase. So these storms are going to come, and they're going to continue to get bigger and stronger. And we need to do everything we can do now to make sure that our communities are resilient so they can withstand it. So that is definitely one of our priorities. As a Sierra Club, is making sure that local elected officials, especially in Black communities across the Palmetto, are able to be able to use their positions and their capacity to help build resilience in Black communities, across the state.
And it also gives people the opportunity to create jobs and businesses. And so, I'm talking with folks who we just started growing hemp in South Carolina, and they have a thing called hempcrete, where you strip out the fibers and you could build homes, using like concrete, build homes and walls and roads. And hempcrete absorbs water. It helps to mitigate flooding, so that you may not, the flood may come, but it may not get in your house. And if it does get in your house, I met someone last weekend at Climate Week in New York, and met someone else at the Department of Energy Berkeley lab in California, where they have building material now made out of bamboo that is flexible. It's flexible in the wind, and it also stops mold from growing in homes. A lot of these homes that are flooded have mold in them, and it's giving people respiratory problems. There are so many amazing things out there and opportunities to use Justice 40 money to make our communities better, to create small businesses and jobs.
That's
But
right.
the problem is convening people, the churches, etc., so that we can tell them about these opportunities and stop trying to go after things by yourself. Just your church, just your denomination, just your organization, because partnerships and collaboration is absolutely essential in order to receive this level of funding at the community level, correct?
That's right. Absolutely. It
And
definitely is.
conservation is a big way that we keep our community safe and healthy. And Sierra Club, you're the new director for the state chapter and connected with Ben Jealous, who is the national leader. And talk some about conservation and how people in rural communities, how we don't understand that we're letting some things happen that is making our communities at greater risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you continue to hone in on, the critical piece of all of this is that it's going to take a, you know, as you often heard the president say a lot, he always says it's going to take a whole of government approach, to be able to tackle the climate crisis. Well, in our
Mhm.
communities, it's going to take a whole of community approach for us to be able to navigate, through the climate crisis and to be able to advance Justice 40. So the Sierra Club South Carolina chapter is so honored, be able to work with New Alpha CDC, to advance Justice 40, and to advance projects that not only projects, but also, like you said, workforce development opportunities that are going to benefit Black communities as well in South Carolina. But as you mentioned, in terms of conservation, it's a topic that's not really, a favorite top of mind topic, in everyday Black households, but it's something that we've been doing forever. We've been doing it.
Mhm.
And I think we had this conversation too. Conservation is something that we've always done. We just haven't necessarily used the term. Our
Yeah.
grandparents, conservationists, and they taught us well, on how to utilize, Earth's resources and how to conserve Earth's resources, and that's basically what it is. Because we're realizing that, as the case with fossil fuels, it's not going to last forever. We cannot continue to be dependent on fossil fuels. There's no abundant supply of it. It's not going to be there forever. So that we must um, look at this as not only a policy issue, but we must also look at it as a way of life. One person that I love to hear speak, Reverend Woodbury, is the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Motley,
Mhm.
because she phrases it so well, and she said, "Hey, look, we got to realize that there's only one planet right now that's livable that we know of. If somebody knows another planet that we can have fresh water, clean air, and let me know now. But as far as we know, there's only one planet that's livable. So we must do everything we can. Our very actions that we take in our household in terms of, conserving, watching, what we bring in and what we put out. Just that way of life, those lifestyle changes, impact everything altogether. So, I think that what is needed and something that I'm going to prioritize in 2025 is, the kitchen table type issues, making those correlations between, hey, look, this is how this impacts this, in our
Mhm.
everyday life. This is why conservation is important, not just, on a policy scale, but also for our very existence and way of life.
Yeah, so we have to start convening people so they see opportunities. So as I said, we were in New York City for Climate Week, and we were there for 11 days, and we do this thing called the Global South Summit, where we bring people together from around the globe and across the southern portion of the United States. And this is our 8th year of having it. But we also attended. We had a booth for 3 days on the High Line, which is where they have a science fair, and you have all these innovative um, things that are helping with conservation and climate and technology and new jobs. And they do this every year in New York. 200,000 people walk through there, including so many children from elementary school. I wish that, and this is something you could think about with the Sierra Club partnering with others. We need to have more convenings like that. Uh, Monday, we were with Congressman Clyburn and Congressman Rokana at Claflin University, and they were talking to the students there from the HBCUs, and they had people, and I'm talking about people, vice presidential level, et cetera, there from Alphabet, from OpenAI, from Microsoft, from Dell, from all of the tech companies that were there, talking about opportunities like they're building data centers in South Carolina, $3.4 billion, and an electrician who wires a data center may take them 3 years to wire it all, $200,000 a year salary for doing that. So there's all these amazing opportunities for community-based organizations, Justice 40, all of this, but
Right.
people are not being told about it. And we're going to have to convene. We're going to have events like we're trying to do, and like we'll be having our Creating a Climate for Change conference, 15th year, October 25th and 26th. But we need more convening because our people in the communities don't know about these opportunities. And I'm hoping that you, with the Sierra Club, will be and your youth will be able to lead our future and a lot of young people in the right direction that'll make our communities move from simply surviving to thriving.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time. So we're going to have you back, and you come to Florence anyway. So I'm going to commit right now to us having the event and having you come and speak at an event sometime next year so that we can continue this conversation and share some of your amazing knowledge and experiences with our communities, with our elders, and especially with our young people. So why don't you tell folks how they can get in touch with you and with the Sierra Club as you move us forward uh, through
Absolutely.
through the 21st century.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to join your show today. And I want to also thank all of you in the listening audience for tuning in. You know, uh, you know, your presence, and your participation and engagement in this show shows that, hey, you want to learn more about what you can do, to move your community forward, to be able to utilize and leverage the historic investments in climate and clean energy to benefit your communities. You want to know how you can participate. You want to know how your children can benefit as well. All of these things are important, and all of these are topics that Reverend Woodbury and his organization, New Alpha CDC, are advancing each and every day. So before I even give you my contact information, I want to encourage all of you, if you don't know more about what New Alpha CDC does, I want to encourage you to Google it. As soon as you Google it, it'll pop right up. You can go to Google and Google New Alpha CDC and find out how you can be engaged with this amazing organization that's doing work on the ground with communities. It's community led in partnership with communities right here in Florence, South Carolina. And as far as the South Carolina, excuse me, as far as the Sierra Club South Carolina chapter, you can reach us as well by visiting Google, and you can just type in Sierra Club South Carolina, and we'll pop right up. That's Sierra Club South Carolina, and we'll pop right up, and you can learn how you can join and become a member, and or learn how you can donate to our cause to help us advance the work that we're doing. If you want to reach me directly, you can email me at montravias.king@sierraclub.org. That's MONTRAVIAS.king, KING, at Sierra, that's SIERRA, Sierra Club, CLUB .org. That's montravias.king@sierraclub.org. You can email me at that address to reach me directly. And again, I just want to thank all of you, for everything that you're doing in communities. I know a lot of you are active each and every day, doing amazing work in the communities. And if you ever want to set up a one-to-one meeting with me to talk about how we can collaborate, feel free to do so at that address.
Thank you. And thank you for the shout out for New Alpha. I also want folks to know that we actually have a PD group of the Sierra Club. So if you live in the PD, contact us, and you can work not only with New Alpha but also with the South Carolina state chapter of the Sierra Club. And so if you want to reach me and New Alpha, you can do so by going to info@newalphacdc.com. Don't forget to go to our website, also newalphacdc.com. And if you want to reach me by telephone, you can do that by calling at the church that I'm still privileged to pastor. Thank you, Lord. And that's Kingdom Living Temple, 843-799-0740. And so thank you, Montravias King, for being our guest. And we look forward to you joining us again next time this week and find out the things you need to know and the places where you need to go by tuning in to the Leo and Larry Show. God bless you. Heaven keep you.